Okay. All right, awesome. So shifting gears a little bit. The second kind of topic that we identified from our last meeting, of many of you raising, was visual arts. Taller is founded as a printmaking workshop. A lot of you are interested in the arts yourselves, so we wanted to explore concepts for programming around the visual arts and the collections at Taller and HSP and how we could make that possible. So do any of you have any particular thoughts or ideas about format and programming for there? Yes?
Now this is for teachers, so your audience is teachers.
All right.
Because that's where I'm coming from. It's been very successful for a very long time at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and that is a poster collection series that is always associated with a workshop for teachers, or they don't have to attend it, but the collection not only does it have pieces of art and with varying meaning, but on the back is a full lesson and description and extension of that piece of art and history on the back of the posters. So I kind of feel this would lend itself to an audience of teachers.
Okay. Interesting, the idea of having a kind of curated collection of works of art that could be geared towards teachers.
That use it in a classroom.
Use it in the classroom.
And embed it in whatever subject area they feel appropriate.
Okay.
Even though it's a great idea, I think moving forward and maybe compulsory if this does happen.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear you.
I said even though it's a wonderful idea, keep in mind that if we do this moving forward, it's going to become compulsory.
The posters.
Teachers pay for it. I forgot to mention that. Teachers pay for it.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Although they have received it free, I've attended. And so
Yeah, they do receive it free.
if you attend the workshop, it's free, but then you pay for it there.
Okay, so these are kind of teacher-based workshops.
Yes.
Okay.
They usually get credit for, 48 hours.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Just separate, the corporate sponsor.
Now, thinking of other kind of formats for, Carmen, did you want to contribute? Sorry.
Well, what I want to contribute again is the idea that came out of the prior conversation, again, was based on somebody noticing the catalog that we did for the 25 print exhibition. We were celebrating our 25th anniversary. But what it was is we invited a number of community people to choose a piece from the collection. Using that mechanism, it is theoretically possible to, and again, this could be a way of again involving youth, have the youth be the curators, and have the opportunity to lay out pieces of the stuff that we have in our collection, as well as what HSP may have in their collection, and then choose a number of pieces that then can become part of an exhibition, or a teacher guide, and the idea was that each curator gives a statement of why they choose that particular piece, how it related to them, to their history, to their connection. And, anyway, I just wanted to put that as a concept to start the conversation.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add, Ian? Sorry. Yes, Rosanna.
I was going to say that maybe following Carmen's point about curated exhibition, maybe the youth could create like an audio guide for these prints. And then it could be something that, again, with technology, many times when you go to the museum, there's like either at the art museum you can get the audio guide, that device, or you can just on your cell phone dial whatever number and press 375 or whatever and get it. And again, we're giving power to the youth to take leadership with this.
Okay. In their own voices. And that is something that could potentially live online in a more, less temporary format. Did you guys have something you wanted to add?
I was just as a jumping off point, during this season, during the summer, I think, in the last 2 years, it was sponsors it. Maybe someone does. But throughout the city, art is placed throughout the city.
Well, are you talking about the reproductions
Oh,
of
is
works
it-
from the VNA's collection?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's.
so I was thinking what you just said, then you have an app and then you just go and then you
To
learn
specifically
that.
go to this
Still a
church.
connection to the original idea of, so it's curated, but it's in all communities. And then it shifts continuously to other pieces, shift to other communities. So it goes into the suburbs, it's in the city.
So kind of a traveling, the idea of having a traveling.
It's not traveling, it's actually in
Site specific?
It's site-specific, it doesn't move, it's sitting right there.
Sorry?
Oh,
yeah, I've
seen
Okay, sort of site-specific context then, rather than a kind of gallery setting.
It's one selected piece in a series. The series is not necessarily connected, although it could have a theme. And it is scattered, and they've done it for the last at least 2 years, in the suburbs too. And so there's 10 or 15 or 20, and then they change it, and then the neighborhood. And then they move and they use a different collection of art in different areas.
Okay. That's an interesting way to engage neighborhoods.
So the tour is not of the place, it's of the art that's in it.
So the app will then give you information on it, and so you go to that location, you get information on that piece, on the artist, et cetera, and then that's it. There's nothing else in that specific. So if you're at Third and Arch, you're at Third and Arch on the corner, and that's it. But then you can go to the Norris train station, and there's one at the Norris train station in Lower Merion. So they're scattered in different diverse communities.
Okay, that'd be a way of expanding the
Communities
audience.
aren't diverse, but they're different diverse locations.
And then we could say, want to learn more? Go to Tashid. The address is blah, blah, blah.
Okay. All right. Did I see your hand up, or am I imagining things? I'm just a bit.
Future.
Any other thoughts about how to structure, a format? I haven't heard much from this side of the table. I was wondering what your thoughts were.
I don't have any in particular.
Okay, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just want to be sure I hear from all voices. Yvette, yeah.
Going back to her idea about having maybe a young person, a high school student or something like that, choose a work of art. Let's say there's going to be an exhibition in Taller, and somehow someone who's interested in art, that might happen in high school, chooses a work of art they're gonna comment on. And maybe I haven't thought, because the idea just came when I was listening to you, but I'm trying to think how to use a different format or platform that is more popular with younger people. And I was thinking, they can share a story. They all have Snapchat. I don't know if you know what Snapchat is. I don't. I know my son does it a lot. So it could be a story in Snapchat. They can share it very fast. And I guess people liked it. I don't know. Or Instagram, where they can put an image and sort of short comment. And who knows, maybe whoever gets the more likes, they get funding, the whole school gets funding, or a bus to come to see the whole exhibition, or something like that, where it can be shared quickly, and they feel like sort of a more sense of their participation counts toward benefiting a bigger group in their school, and they can come and see the whole thing in Taller, something like that.
Okay, so
over
leveraging social media.
Yeah, with the
Okay.
youth, yeah.
Okay, all right, interesting concept. Yeah.
And to go further with her point, I'm just trying to think of the buy-in with our teachers. I mean, our teachers want to have various opportunities for their students, but if you're coming in, I have a lesson plan and I have things to get done before the end of the year. And while you may come to me with this great idea, what do I have to knock out of my curriculum, my plans for the curriculum for this year, so that I can go and allow let's say 3-4 weeks for this. So what's my buy-in? Like you said, do you win a prize? Oh, okay, well, we can go and, oh, now you're incentivizing me, there's going to be a top prize being given to the best whatever.
Okay. Yeah, so considering what sort of logistical constraints our audience members may have, be they teachers or students. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I do have an idea. I think we have to go back to the bigger concept of immigration.
Okay.
So having maybe open exhibits at Taller or here, but more likely at Taller because they have an art gallery, inviting anybody who is an immigrant from any part of Philadelphia to share their artwork. So they understand they have commonality and maybe some differences expressed through their art, and maybe the artist be explaining their artwork. So you could be an open exhibit maybe for just one weekend, but do it a couple times a year. And I would not think that would be very expensive either.
Okay, so you bring an interesting point of the audience of immigrants more broadly, outside of just the kind of Puerto Rican context.
Yes.
Okay.
Flora?
Yes.
It's getting away from the kind of Instagram. It's more analog. But if you asked as one of the if you had a theme within the oral histories and within the art that was on either policing or incarceration, then one idea might be to see if you could do maybe as a third exhibit something at Eastern State Penitentiary, because there are so many people that go through it, to talk to them and see if they'd be interested in a basically just a short-term project that would basically.
I was like, oh, let's ask the gentleman.
But I thought that might be just something to consider. Yeah.
Okay.
when we were doing
So.
Oh, yes, please.
Well, this isn't like a formulated thought, but I just keep thinking about the murals because I feel like the Puerto Rican community in Philadelphia in many ways isn't an especially visible community citywide, except I do think that there are murals maybe more generally with Latino themes that are throughout the city. So I'm not sure how that could tie in, but especially since we did do that tour of the Italian market and saw a very different type of mural in the awnings, that somehow that could connect, but that's very vague.
No, I mean, there's room for all kinds of developed thoughts. So the idea of public art and murals, right, and a kind of public visibility. Okay. All right. That's an interesting point. Absolutely. Yes.
Live plays, having student write about the experience as Puerto Rican in Philadelphia, history, present, maybe the future, and having that's a visual art we haven't talked about, is actual people performing. It doesn't have to be professionals, but I think high school students would really, and middle school students really love performing. And it can be very simple vignette type of plays that are anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes long. And there are some in the archives that Puerto Rican students were writing plays and performing plays in the 1970s also. I think I mentioned that last time.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, your performance is a part of this.
Right.
Okay. I haven't heard from you yet, Izzy. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about what we've discussed so far.
I'm just sleeping.
It's all right. I understand. It's a Saturday morning.
Okay, this is interesting stuff. So I'm just trying to think that you're baffling me, right? So, just some support kind of comments, right? Like I think I have 11 grandchildren, right? And I know that social media is a key part of their life through the events here, right? So one I think, and when we talk about consulting, we do need a millennial nerd or something like that. I mean, seriously, I know one too, just in case. About 20-something years old, and he knows snapshots, he knows all that stuff. The more important thing is how do you penetrate certain sectors there, right? That way, not just throwing something out in Google or something like that and let it happen like they do on Facebook, right? So that'd be penetrating the network. So that's just one thing I guess that falls on I'm for it. I don't know if that costs money or to be volunteer. I don't know. Again, you know. So to me, it's basically my question is how do we really penetrate that market? It's a question for the group and for our consultants or wherever they are. The other only piece is that I see the importance of schools, engaging schools. And there's a reason for this. One, none of this history is in the schools. We sued the school district several times in this city in order to get certain things in there, and today I don't even know what's in there. So long assume, right? It may be possible with a new school board, I don't know what that means, but I do know this. Diane has a long history with some of the neighborhood schools. And maybe we could figure out a way to approach those schools and do like a test. I mean, I don't know what they would call it. To do some of the things you're talking about, but try it out, right? I mean, begin to test what the material we have, evaluate it, and then go broader. Because I just fear that sometimes we do these things and then after 2 years everything is, you know, if we want to somehow institutionalize it, which in my mind would be to have some of this stuff in the curriculum, and you hit that on the note, right? We might not make it this year, but the following year we might be able to integrate some of this work, right? And use it as a way that teachers and other folks that are working with young people can engage them in creative ways within their environment, right? Which is the struggle that they're facing right now. So I'm not overly concerned with every single school. I'm concerned with this community, the schools in this community, the institutions, the challenges that these young people have, right? And out of that, let me tell you, I think that any of these projects would probably be very interesting to a broader political community. I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure you guys are talented enough to make all those connections. There was one last piece that always reminded me when I went through some of the pieces. For some reason, I started looking at some of HSP, some of the archives of the Irish coming to it. So all of a sudden, I started thinking about the two faces, right? Irish came here, they were called darkies, they were called all sorts of stuff, might be that way, right? The Irish also had a colonial history with Britain, isn't that something? Out of most of the communities here in the city, there are two communities that have comparable types of. And that was my way of kind of saying, well, how do we connect with other neighborhoods, right? Other communities in Philadelphia have been here a long time and have had kind of similar struggles, even though they're not considered people of color. But not at that time, in 1901, they were preferred people of color. So the question for me is, and I'm thinking along the last piece, looking at historical and looking at two neighborhoods, two cultural neighborhoods. But it's not something I would promote. It might take us away from this, but those are the type of things that ignite it.
I think that I appreciate those thoughts, and I think that you raise a bunch of important points. What you just said about kind of connecting to a larger immigrant experience is definitely something that is an interest of this grant that all of you have articulated in your, in individual responses as well as through your archival work. So I think it's a really good idea to try and incorporate that piece here. Absolutely. Do any of our technical advisors have any feedback or responses to what they've heard so far from their own experience in programming? I know I'm putting you guys on the spot.
I don't know if my comment would be very helpful, but I'll toss it out there anyway. I know that Flora and Beth are obviously are trying to keep the process, moving forward. A lot of the ideas we're discussing, I get like a little bit panicky thing because June feels like it's a world away. June is like the day after tomorrow. June's about 2.5 weeks from now. You can't get anything done in December, the month of December. If you're working with students, with teachers, but also with government, like profits, I don't know, December's kind of a tough time to get anything done. And then you're into the holidays, and then your teachers already have their semesters set. Like a lot of these ideas are actually like making my blood pressure go up a little bit. Like these are big ideas, and you're on a really short time frame now. So
Well, I mean, it's all about balancing our ideals and, you know, the pragmatics of it and seeing how we can kind of make it work. Did you have something you want to add?
Well, just, you know, so, I mean, the purpose of the exercise is really to you know, to dream and produce ideas that hopefully, right, will feed us when we work on, and then in December we'll feed it back to you all. and probably you may not even recognize it because it will be, you know, more the realistic that can be done within the very short frame of time that we have and the capacities that we have within our institutions. I mean, remember, Taller is a tiny organization, HSP is not that much bigger in terms of people doing all this work. So, but at the same time, I think that, you know, sometimes your thought is in real big, but we can adapt it in the microcosm, and it can still be a wonderful idea. So,
absolutely,
I think it's a very, you know, this is a very helpful conversation.
I know exactly.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to connect back to is that when we, you know, the thrust behind the grant and the conversation for us, at least for our two institutions, is really to use, you know, the Puerto Rican experience. Obviously, we have an invested interest in it, es Taller Puertorriqueño, but it's to use that experience as it connects to, you know, to the community at large, because we're all came from somewhere, and the processes and the instigators of those movements tend to have very common, you know, very significant commonalities. So, you know, we are going to, as we think about this, we're also going to try to make those connections so that people make those connections as well.
Thank you. Absolutely, yes. I mean, the pleasure of this conversation is all of the ideas that you're generating, and it's sort of the organization, part of our organizational job to sort of hone it down to what can be done, and then bring those ideas to you in December for more dialogue about, you know, your response to them. So this is a process, as Beth said. This is about process and not just the end product. So this is really valuable in and of itself. Any other comments that people want to make about visual art and how we might think about formats and audience before we transition to our third and final topic? Yes?
Throw back in, I haven't heard it mentioned since earlier today, timelines. I think they're very, very valuable. You can do bunches of different ways, and of course they could be online. They could be social media, you can print them on a card. But if we're going to highlight, say, neighborhoods, whatever our ultimate theme is going to be, we can do timeline and identify.
Well, you're actually raising our next topic, which, because the third kind of theme that arose was the idea of making a timeline or mapping of some kind. So would you like to transition to that? Okay, great. Let me take a picture. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at that. Oh my goodness. Wowza, technology, spectacular. Glad somebody in the room has a PhD, because I certainly couldn't. And look at that, I'm opening 2 pens at once, which is great. Okay, wowza.